There is a war going on for your mind. Professional wrestlers and vice presidents want you to believe them. The desert sky is their blue screen, they superimpose explosions. They shout at you. Pay no attention to the men behind the barred curtain, nor the craters beneath the draped flags. Those hoods are there for your protection, and the meteors these days are the size of corpses. There is a war going on for your mind. We are the insurgents.
And we are back. It's the Info Warrior with Jason Bermas. Before we go to our guest this evening, Joe Banister, it's my honor to bring you former IRS agent Joe Banister. How are you, Joe?
How you doing?
Good, man. Good. You know, I really want to get into these latest DHS documents. We haven't really been able to talk to you about the MIAC report yet. But before we do that, why don't you give people background on who you are and, you know, your situation?
Okay. Well, I'm in my mid-40s or going towards 50, 46 years old. Born and raised in San Jose, California. Currently reside in Carson City, Nevada. And I graduated from college back in 1986, and I spent 4 or 5 years in the private sector, and decided that it was kind of a boring life, the private sector, and decided to pursue a career in law enforcement. So I applied to the FBI and the IRS back in the early 90s, and I was more preferring the FBI because, you know, the FBI is the agency where they make really cool TV shows about them, and the IRS, no, they don't make any TV shows about the IRS. Nobody likes the IRS. So anyway, my heart was kind of set on the FBI, but due to a hiring freeze with the Department of Justice, I just couldn't actually get sent to Quantico, Virginia. But, you know, I had passed all the gauntlet of evaluations that they put people through. Anyway, while I was waiting for the FBI hiring freeze to end, the IRS Criminal Investigation Division called me and asked me if I'd be interested in a special agent position with that agency. And while I was waiting for the FBI, I was looking into the IRS a little bit more, and I found that they did money laundering investigations and joint investigations with the DEA and the FBI, and so I thought, well, maybe this wouldn't be such a bad job after all. So I went ahead and accepted the position in November of 1993, and then 1994 I spent in training for a few months, and so basically throughout 1994, 1995, and 1996 was an IRS special agent, and they do very similar work to what an FBI agent would do or a Secret Service agent, but their domain or jurisdiction is much more limited, deals with income tax, taxation, federal taxation, and money laundering. So,
now, on the next side, I want to talk about, you know, your relationship with the IRS. Obviously, you're an agent there for a few years. You come across some information, and you just simply ask the IRS a few simple questions, and then all of a sudden, things change in rapid fashion. And, of course, right. Joe is featured in America Freedom to Fascism, which, according to the MIAC report, is a terrorist document, and we shouldn't be handing it out to people, and you must be anti-Semitic if you're passing out Aaron Russo's film. We got Joe Banister on the other side. It's the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas, PrisonPlanet.com, and Infowars.com.
The good old folks at New Silver Solution. And the website is supernaturalsilver.com. Supernaturalsilver.com. This is something that kills bacteria, viruses, you name it, well documented. They've got it down to a super small nano-sized particle. Supernaturalsilver.com. Check them out at Infowars.com. Supernaturalsilver.com.
All right, folks, we are back at the Info Warrior with Jason Bermas, and we're going to reconnect with Joe Banister in just a moment. But, of course, that is the extremist and terrorist recruitment tool that DHS is so scared of, America Freedom to Fascism, one of those viral videos out there that is just excellent. And it's really in my top 10 of Patriot videos. Joe Banister is great. And, I mean, again, this is a guy who went in, to try to do good in the world. He wanted to be an FBI agent. He becomes an IRS agent. You're an IRS agent, Joe, for a few years, and then what happens?
Well, about 3 years, and I was listening to a talk radio show, a lady named D.V. Kidd, if you've ever heard or spoken to D.V. She was making these claims about the federal income tax, that the vast majority of Americans were not required to pay it, at least when you went and looked at the actual laws that were passed by Congress. And so when I heard her say this, I thought that was wackiness, but she said it on a talk show hosted by a guy who was always pretty truthful. It'd be kind of like somebody listening to Alex or yourself for a while and saying, well, wow, these guys always come up with the truth time and time again. And then you say something new that they're not, never heard of before, and they think, well, how could this be? So anyway, I looked into what she said, and the thing is that because the tax laws are so complex, and I was working 50-hour work weeks at the IRS and, a soccer coach and all the duties of a father and husband, it took me about 2 years to really exhaustively look into these claims that D.V. Kidd made about the income tax being a scam. And after that 2-year period, I really had to come to the conclusion, grudgingly, that she was right, that the IRS was lying to people, violating their rights, stealing their property, and without the lawful authority to do so. And so I had to think to myself, okay, what am I going to do now? And I knew that my parents didn't raise me to steal from people or to help others steal from people. And so I decided to confront my supervisors at the IRS and say, look, I've gone to bat for this agency and for the income tax. I've spent 2 years exhaustively researching this and validating these claims by these so-called tax protesters, and it looks to me like they're largely correct. So we need to do something about this. I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution, and I have a duty, both a legal and moral duty, to speak up about this and get some answers. And I said that if you can't give me any answers, I'm going to have to resign because I can't serve two masters. And their response to me was that they would not respond to any of my concerns, and they'd provide me with the paperwork necessary to tender my resignation.
So immediately you question authority, and they ask for your resignation.
Yeah, it took about 2 days for it to go up the chain of command and for it to come back down the chain of command to figure out, well, what are we going to do with this guy? And so I got called into my chief's office about 2 days after I submitted my report and my letter, and their answer was no answer. They sent me a little memo. It was about 2 paragraphs long, and it said you will be immediately placed on administrative leave and for a week, and we will not be responding to any of your questions. So they didn't fire me, but they immediately sent me home, took my firearm, and sent me home for a week. And so about halfway through that week, I realized that, I have earned a pretty good reputation here at the IRS over these last 5.5 years. And if I stick around, they're going to destroy it. And if I have a destroyed reputation, I'm not going to be credible to anyone. So I decided the best course of action was to resign.
And then on top of that, you basically don't go along with the IRS afterwards, and, you made national media. It's in America, freedom to fascism, and the news media starts to jump on you and say, oh, do you feel like you got away with something? And you immediately strike back. I haven't gotten away with anything. There is no law.
Well, right. It's kind of interesting how the media attention worked, because for how things worked out, there aren't that many IRS agents or former IRS agents who will, take the time to look into this information, let alone come to the conclusions that I came to. So whenever they were hunting around for, a talking head to take the other side, they'd choose me. And that one particular broadcast with Congressman Ron Paul that appeared in the movie was just like a last-minute thing where somebody called me up and said, hey, can you come down to the studio in San Jose in 45 minutes? And they strap on the earpiece, and boom, you're on the air. And I certainly wasn't prepared for this question from Maria Bartiromo. How have you been getting away with not paying your taxes all these years? And I got kind of upset, at the tone of that question. And I just, answered it kind of what came to mind, which was I'm not hiding from anyone. I'm not trying to get away with anything. I'm trying to get some answers regarding this federal income tax that, stinks to high heaven, and no one seems to want to give me any answers.
All right, let's fast forward now to, a couple months ago, this MIAC report comes out. And it's all about, these crazies who believe in a new world order. They're not allowed to talk about it. People talking about RFID chips, people talking about the North American Union. They're all anti-Semitic. They're neo-Nazis. And then in the back, they show what some of the materials are, the subversive materials. And right next to the Turner Diaries is the movie you're featured in, America, Freedom to Fascism. Again, trying to go after people who know that the 16th Amendment was never properly ratified, who know there isn't a law in the books, and try to make us out to be some kind of a neo-Nazi group. How did you feel about that?
It seemed to me to be kind of par for the course. I mean, I haven't been, in this movement for decades, but it's been over 10 years. And I definitely see a pattern where they have this broad brush that they pull out,